Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome to my channel. I am back with another book wrap-up. I have read some really interesting books the past little while. I have some strong feelings on them, and I am very excited to talk about them. So let's jump into that. So on the advice of basically everyone, I finally read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And I have been on hold for this book since August, so I finally was able to read this book, and everyone said it was just the sweetest, most fun romance. And so this is following Nora Stevens, who her whole life is books, and she is a book agent. And there is this book editor that's all a little bit prickly, and she decides that she wants to go out to a small town with her sister, and she runs into this book editor, and life goes on from there. I don't know if I'm the right audience for this. I struggle to find romance books that I can take seriously, but I didn't really enjoy this book. I spent the majority of my time rolling my eyes, just like, is this really what's happening? I know that it was supposed to be subverting some of those rom-com tropes, but instead I felt like it just played into them. I was just kind of annoyed. One of my biggest problems with the book was just so much talking, which sounds weird, but the way that it's structured, like, it's only over, a month, like a few days, few weeks of the two main characters, our love interest, talking. And are they in therapy or are they dating? It is just trauma dumping. So of course they feel close to each other. They just dumped all their deep secrets on each other. Like, I just didn't really feel like it was an organic, real relationship, other than they did have a lot in common. You could see how the relationship would work, but then it kept saying, oh, but we can't be together, for no real reason, and you knew they were gonna end up together. It just made me roll my eyes. I didn't really like it, and I just struggle to find romance books that I think, oh yes, this was sweet and cute. This one was more just, it was okay. It was fine. So, I mean, I'm a little middle of the road. Like, I enjoyed it. It was fun, but I rolled my eyes and thought it was stupid. So, yeah, not my favorite. And thank you to Brandon over at Brandon's Bookshelf. I picked up the book Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. So this book is basically told over the course of one day, and we have our Mrs. Dalloway kind of looking back on her life and the choices that led her to where she is. I thought that there were moments of really beautiful writing in this. It would have been a really great one to sit down in front of a cozy fire and just enjoy reading, and I have nothing to do. That's not really my life, and I'm running around with kids, and so I found all the characters that were introduced to be a little confusing to keep track of, and I thought it was a little dull, just kind of boring. But it had its moments of being really beautiful, and so I think that if you want to pick this up, I mean, it's a classic. I think it's a well done book. I think if you want to pick this up, you need to be in the sitting down, relaxing, enjoying, like, really, my ideal would be like in a little library sitting next to a fireplace and just like know where to be, flipping through pages. I feel like you'd really like this book on a read, couple pages here and there in between taking care of children and running around town. Like, I didn't find it super profound. So it was okay. I finally picked up Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr, and I loved this book. It ended up being really good. This is following multiple storylines. We have Constantinople in 1453, we have Idaho in 2020, we have some distant future, kind of futuristic sci-fi. You get all those kind of different timelines. You also get another story that's taking place over many years that goes through like the Vietnam War, and it was, at first, I was very invested in each of the individual stories. I thought that they were all very interesting, but I had no idea how they could all come together. Like, they just didn't seem to be connected by a strong enough thread. And I still, when I got to the end, saw one or two that I was like, I don't know if this quite, especially maybe the Super in the Past Constantinople one, I get why it was in there, but I didn't feel like it was necessarily necessary to the book. But I liked the overall messages in it. It was kind of subtle, but I feel like it was really in like, you know, living the best life with what you have and what opportunities you have. And I thought that it was, I thought it was really beautiful, and talking about, you know, the stories that survive and talking about books. And I thought that there were some really beautiful things in it. And it had like, throughout, it had this story, this like classical myth kind of story about Cloud Cuckoo Land that was woven throughout. And I thought that was really beautiful. I actually told that story to my young girls because they wanted to know what I was reading. So I told them the little fable that was woven throughout, and they thought that that was the coolest story and wanted me to tell it over and over again. So I thought that there were some really memorable parts in this, and I ended up giving it like 5 stars. I thought that this was really well done, even if maybe some of the storylines were connected maybe a little too tangentially. I thought it was still a really good read. I read Such a Strange Book. I read A Ladder to the Sky by John Boyne, and this was actually really well done. It was such a strange book. So we have our main character, I guess, is Morris. I think it's Morris. And I think you say it Morris. Anyways, he is charming and handsome, but he is just taking advantage of person after person because he wants to be a successful writer at all costs. And it's kind of, you know, like almost like a portrait of a psychopath. And I thought it was really interesting the way that it was told. So the first part was told by a German author who is taken advantage of by Morris. Then we get another author who Morris tries to maybe, you know, see if he can get something out of, but this man is too smart for him. So just kind of this short section where we maybe get a more clear outside perspective of Morris as a person. Then we get an in-depth look at Morris's relationships with Morris gets married, and we get Morris's wife's perspective, and you go all through that. Then you get the perspective of Morris at the end. So it's an interesting way to write a book, but it really was an amazing way to get that clear picture. I didn't feel like any of the characters were super likable in this book, but a lot of times that makes me not really enjoy a book, and I feel like the author was really successful in making a bunch of characters that weren't very likable, but that you still were interested in, that you wanted to know what happened to them. And I thought that that was really well done. I thought that the ending, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I really thought the ending was interesting and made me think for a bit. Just really well done on that. I really liked this book. I don't recommend it to everyone. So like I would say 5 stars, everybody should read it. I think a specific person would really love this book. It's like, if you like literature and kind of a bit of a thriller and some like relationship drama and maybe like a portrait of someone who doesn't have real human feeling, I think that you would really like this, but I could also see a lot of people really not enjoying this. But for me, I couldn't put it down. I had to know what happened. It was super interesting. So this was a really kind of crazy read. Really, actually rather enjoyed it. And those are the books that I've read in the last little while. If you have read any of these and have any thoughts on them, please let me know. I would be very interested to hear what you think of these, and I will see you all in the next one.